Be strong.
Alrighty, well, good morning. Happy Monday, October the 10th, here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Let's get our heads on right here on a Monday as we get ready for another busy week and as we get ready for another week of sports and a lot to talk about, a lot to go about. We have to kind of take you back a little bit because we had a busy weekend, anything from high school football to college football. A lot of NFL games going on this week, another London series, a couple other surprises, things, and it's, I think the season for the NFL is starting to become more clear, more relevant to me. And, I just maybe don't want to accept reality or accept faith in certain teams. My Rams are not playing so good, especially going up against the Dallas Cowboys yesterday and losing. Gosh, I was just so frustrated in that game alone. But there was plenty of football to talk about. And on top of that, the notion is we got to cover wrestling. A lot to talk about what happened on Friday Night SmackDown, what happened at Extreme Rules, and getting you guys ready, transition into tonight because it rolls over. Monday Night Raw begins tonight, and so there's a lot that we can start diving into and covering. And I think the biggest notion I think you could take away from the weekend, at least I do, I think a lot of people do, is just the simple complexity of, hey, Extreme Rules, an event this past weekend, back on Saturday actually, that was shockingly very surprising. I came in here and I gave you the ins and outs. I thought Ronda Rousey was going to win. I thought she won. I thought Bayley was going to win. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I thought Bayley was going to come in and win, and defeat the, Bianca Belair, becomes new Raw Women's Champion. And I was just a little disappointed because, that's the whole purpose of the reasoning behind Damage Control winning gold, was to eventually get her on path to winning gold as well. Now maybe it doesn't come as quickly, but we will. I still strongly believe that we will be seeing gold around Bayley's waist here very shortly. Now Ronda Rousey won back on Saturday, and I think the overall conception is when you put someone up against Ronda, you can't bet against Ronda. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. So when you have Liv Morgan, and I'm not going to say nothing, there's nothing negative towards her, towards her championship run that we've seen, but Liv Morgan just doesn't have, I don't know. I felt like her title run has been stale. There hasn't really been true opponent to go up against Liv Morgan. And we're getting into the season where we need, or I think we expect, or we, definitely expect someone promising to hold the title for, right? We're starting to, I say, October 10th, we are now in the swing or in the mode to get ready for WrestleMania next year. Or do you guys agree on that? We are, some of the storylines that are taking place now are inbuilt for events like Crown Jewel. You got Survivor Series, Day One, the Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber, and then WrestleMania. There are 6 events gonna happen between now and WrestleMania time that all leads up to the final ultimate story. And I guess I don't know what their plans on for Charlotte Flair if and when she returns. Now I thought maybe I mean I couldn't see 2 titles changing hands, and matter of fact, coming into Saturday, I really believed that Bayley was going to win the Raw Women's Championship, and that Ronda Rousey, someone was going to come back and just defeat Ronda Rousey, and cost Ronda Rousey the match. That's what I thought. But we'll dive more into that a little bit later on in our program. I want to talk a little bit more heavily about Extreme Rules, getting you guys ready for Monday Night Raw. Apparently there was some controversy going on with the Bloodline on SmackDown. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Karrion Kross beating Drew McIntyre. Finn Balor and Edge in an I Quit match. And for given what it's worth, I think it turned out to be a really solid match. I really enjoyed it. I was a big fan of the match, and everything that came with it. But I really thought that was going to be the main event match. Now, all weekend long, and for last couple of weeks, they've been teasing that Extreme Rules was going to be the release of the White Rabbit, right? What's been going on around on, in the WWE the last couple of weeks. And so I think a lot of people tuned in. It was kind of an incentive to tune into a WWE Premium Live. And there was plenty of reasons otherwise to tune into the event, not just because they actually had stipulations to the show, which I think shocked most of everyone else. But, then we had the privilege to see who this White Rabbit was going to be. And when you start crossing your T's, dotting your I's, and trying to figure this out, we could play the whole conspiracy game all along prior. And it could have been anyone. Now, you could hear the rumors all the time. Oh, this person's going to return, that person's going to return. But until you see them return, it's kind of difficult to make that judgment exactly who is going to return and make the impact. Now, everyone was going back to, Bray Wyatt, right? And I was one of the many that also believed Bray Wyatt was going to return. It's been something that, he hasn't been in television or doing anything for years. And I just, for ever since he left last year. And I just think that, in my opinion, okay, this is just me taking information for what it's worth and sharing along among you guys. There are professional athletes. Okay, let me put it this way. There are always going to be athletes. There are always going to be professional wrestlers. There's always going to be entertainers. There's always going to be people out there that want to work for the WWE. And there are going to always be people among the AEW roster, among the Impact roster, among the New Japan roster, among AAA, Lucha Underground. Wherever you go, there's going to always be people that want to work for the WWE. And there are always going to be, and WWE is always, okay, and I mean always. I know this is a big, bold statement, but I'm going to say this. WWE is always going to be a program that growing up, you're going to watch, and you're going to say, I'm going to work towards that. All right. I mean, until you sit there, until you have your WrestleMania match, because let's face it. I mean, don't get me wrong. AEW puts on decent products, puts on really good, product out there. Impact is a great show to be on, but WWE has and probably always will be the stepping stone. And if you're going to climb a mountain, if you're going to want to thrive, to get better, to be at top of the mountain, you're going to have to go through the WWE. Let's face it, okay? There is no one in AEW right now that is at the top of the mountaintop up there that has not gotten credit outside for another promotion. Okay, Chris Jericho has had success in the WWE and in WCW and in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Jon Moxley was known. Bryan Danielson, and here's the thing, they've had success in the indie wrestling circuits. Okay, let's not forget about those talents. But the difference is that there is a huge difference between working for WWE and working for one of these indie promotions. Now, unless you're a guy like Kenny Omega, okay, or the Young Bucks, right, where you're only known locally. I mean, don't get me wrong, Kenny Omega's had an awesome career. He's had a Hall of Fame career, but I've only known Kenny Omega for the last, 5-6 years. And even after knowing him, hearing his name, hearing him compete, and when I first heard him, there was rumors about him wanting to come to WWE to begin with, right? So it all relates back to WWE, right? But when I first heard about him, it was about coming to WWE, and then it's simply just going from there, right? I mean, I think everything that you can say ties back around WWE. And there are very few athletes that are capable of making their name, establishing their career worldwide, and put it that way, worldwide, without stepping foot in the WWE. I mean, Bobby Roode, James Storm, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Sting. I mean, Sting was well established prior to that. Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan. I mean, name me besides maybe Kenny Omega, right? Besides Kenny Omega, because that's the only one that I could think of. And besides what New Japan Pro Wrestling is doing right now, because I just don't know enough about New Japan. Tell me a athlete that has never, ever stepped foot into WWE that is not at the mountaintop. Okay, Matt Cardona has been in the WWE. And then and then we'll start diving into guys like Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara, and then that's fine, but they're not there yet, right? Wardlow's not there yet. MJF is almost there. He's not there yet. CM Punk, WWE. WWE is the footprint, is the top of the line, right? When you reach WWE, you reach the top. Now you could go left, right, slide, but everything's at a slant, right? So when you see AEW, they're up at the mountaintop. They're not at the top, but so if you had not in WWE, there's a reason why a lot of people still want to be at WWE. You go out to, and it's the other thing, right? It's about simply winning. It's about making it to WWE, being on a Raw, being on a SmackDown, having some sort of title, and ultimately trying to main event WrestleMania. And I think if you don't have those clear visions in your head, it makes the road to your success a lot more challenging. Now, what we're seeing over the last few years is that, hey, you can write your own, your own story, your own career, and it doesn't have to be exactly how everyone else's. But WWE is still the platform, and so when we see Bray Wyatt return back to WWE, there's still people out there that are still loyal, that are still dedicated, still think WWE is a great product, and we knew that this was all we needed was from WWE was to allow Bray Wyatt to have his own control. I mean, if you saw Saturday night. And hey, spoiler alert here, but if you saw Saturday night, and we'll get more into this in our program, but if you saw Saturday night, you saw Bray Wyatt return, and you saw this demonic, you saw this teasing of Bray Wyatt, bring in the entire Firefly Funhouse alive. That's what you saw. You saw the entire Firefly Funhouse characters come alive. And then for a moment, it didn't really make any sense. But you got to see something that AEW doesn't normally pull off. And this is thanks to the hands of Bray Wyatt making his return. I can't state it enough. I mean, Bray Wyatt is an essential to professional wrestling, and it's underestimated. And the only question now is where direction is he going in? We're going to have to dive into that a little bit more in our program. Basically, I want to know more about who is his first opponent, what direction is he headed in, who is he going to get involved, because as people come back and now there's a, room for, character changing. There was a rumor out there that Bo Dallas may be coming back. Could he be a part of Bray Wyatt's success, the Fiend's success? And what we saw on Saturday night is that, hey, the emphasis of the quotations, he got the whole world in his hands. I mean, everyone's singing along. He does, and it's his own little universe. And WWE gets the honor to express that, and gets the honor to allow him to go places. And so another big return in the WWE as Bray Wyatt makes his debut back on Saturday night. So something very exciting to start paying attention to as we approach ourselves to Crown Jewel, approach ourselves to Survivor Series, Day 1, all the way up until WrestleMania. This is what the road to WrestleMania looks like. It doesn't just necessarily start at the Royal Rumble. These are storylines that gather back prior to that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're just kicking things off on a Monday. Hey, those Bengals lost, and they did something. They did something that the Ravens did the previous week that cost them the victory. Get you ready for the NLDS that begins tomorrow, and so much more. We're just getting started here on a Monday. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Throw One with Justin, taking you guys up until noon right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, welcome back here on a Monday morning, 10:26 on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Take you guys right up until high noon on a Monday. And I had a good relaxing weekend. Nothing too crazy. You know, my oldest got a chance, ended up my oldest daughter got a chance, was playing. They went to the pumpkin patch on Friday while I was at work, and I guess she kind of rolled over her ankle, and she was kind of limping all weekend long, back and forth. So it kind of took this opportunity because there was a lot of sports going on this weekend. You know, between college, between the NFL, and between baseball and the playoffs. Just to kind of sit back, relax, enjoy the weekend, not really do a whole lot of anything. It kind of saved me because I got a chance to stay home, watch the game, watch both, the third game of the Padres and Mets game, and the Bengals, at least majority of it, with the wife on last night. So, it was actually very, I want to say it wasn't like important games. I know the Padres was an important game for me to watch, but Sunday, primetime football game, you get into the Bengals, and whenever Bengals play underneath the lights, I think it just scares you a lot. I mean, I'm terrified whenever you see the Bengals in a primetime position to play under the lights. And I mean, coming into this weekend, I think, give credit. I told you guys it was either the Bengals are going to show the 0-2 team that still needs to be worried about, that still needs to be concerned about, or they're going to be the 2-0 advancing their streak to 3-0, with against the Ravens. And now, I mean, and I've said, the Ravens are going to be the tough battle in the AFC North. And this is the prime example because even though the Ravens, and where I feel last week what happened, with the Ravens taking the chance, not capitalizing on the chance, listen, I think everybody is okay with not being it, with kind of taking the chance once in a while, right? When you go for it on fourth down, when you decide not to kick the field goal compared to basically, going for it and missing it, and it could eventually cost you a game. There were plays last night that the Bengals went out and they should have won. They should have got points on, and then I think the one familiar play was fourth down. It was fourth and goal, and it was towards the end of the third quarter, and they were down. It was 13-10. And I'm like, why don't you just kick the field goal and tie the game? Because you have a better one-on-one chance to take on Lamar Jackson in a throwing competition than you do in the field goal, race. And, the Bengals go on and score another touchdown, but then, the Ravens could go on and kick 2 field goals, right? Field goals are now keeping them alive. So it's just simple mistakes that for me that the Bengals made last night that really cost them game 5. And here's the Bengals and Ravens highlights of week 5.
Snap ends up hitting, but is fielded finally by Devin Duvernay, who goes down the sideline, and a busted play turns into a big gain. Give Duvernay, pure running back, halfback in there at the moment. It's a pitch to Duvernay with Ricard and Stanley leading the way down the sideline for a first down. That battery around him has changed a little bit over the last few years. Here he is from 37 yards. And what else is the linebackers coach here? Hey, Bengals fans, it's the first kickoff return of the year. Haven't had one all year, and it's a good start with one for Chris Evans, who takes it across the 30-yard line. Samaje Perine in the back. Ravens bring 4. Burrow in trouble. JPP with the sack. The 32-yard line, Dobbins to the left, got a nice block. Into the secondary he goes. Finishing the run, gain of nearly 18 yards for the third-year man out of Ohio State. The backfield for Jackson. Bengals bring 6, and Lamar fires complete to Devin Duvernay.
Or do you drop 8 back into coverage?
This rushing 4 here. Jackson throws complete. It's Andrews for the touchdown.
The Bengals were trying to do in the passing game, completely drop coverage. We see Trey Flowers, who oftentimes has the tight end.
With no huddle, try to change the mojo a little bit. Burrow pressured up the middle. He's sacked. Josh Bynes, the veteran, betting on himself as he's in the final year of his deal. It's on the run here. Fake that little pitch, and it gave him space to take it out to the 41-yard line. The 41-yard line. This will be another big opening again. It's Kenyon Drake through it this time. Into Cincinnati territory. And another first down. I think the Ravens love this guy. He loves the Ravens. Will they find the right spot? Jackson, sideline shot, too tall, and intercepted. This offense was moving, but Von Bell back in the safety position gets that over the Jackson side, pushing towards that. Thus, the inability to get a deal done in the offseason, and it will linger all year. Mixon for the first down. So Cincinnati, I think you're right, Chris. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins have not been targeted yet tonight. Burrow throws, it's complete. It's Mike Thomas with the catch. And on the run is Thomas inside the 35 to the 30-yard line. Friendly words back and forth. Burrow throws over the middle. It's caught by the former Raven. Hayden Hurst reaches for the goal line. In for the touchdown. Oh, that is sweet for Hayden Hurst. Welcome back to ball.
First of all, this takes some time to happen. Nice job by the offensive line. But as soon as he gets on the other side of Josh Bynes, it is over. Now watch him finish this play.
So 2nd and 8. And Jackson gets out of the pocket to his left and thrown down by Jermaine Pratt over at the. Maybe they have the terrific long leg of Evan McPherson. If they get in field goal range, and they do with that one, it's Tyler Boyd. First target of the night for the slot receiver, and he takes it to the 28-yard line. Perfect. After being stopped on downs, the Bengals take over for the 41, and Burrow throws to Chase. It's an interception for Patrick Queen. His old LSU teammate gets him and gets the ball right back for Baltimore. Pounds it as usual. Makes it as usual. Burrow looking up top, chasing motion. Looking to Jamar, a little Philly special. Here is Boyd, who's going to throw, but he got hit by Marcus Peters. Back to the 15-yard line. Fourth quarter begins with 1st and 10 for Lamar, the 36. Throwing it towards his tight end. Andrews, feet down. Inbounds, a catch at the 45-yard line. What for him is a relatively easy one. 25 yards. Rockets it through, and the Bengals end another long drive with a go-ahead score. Burrow will be pushed in and is in for the touchdown. Wilcox, the tight end, was behind him. Wouldn't let Calais Campbell stop him. And Joe Burrow has tied the game with a touchdown run.
Let's just be obvious about it. We know we're scrumming. Let's just put a guy right back there, and it made the difference on that play. We'll see.
Lamar Jackson keeps it running between the tackles. On the move, Jackson to the outside, into field goal range at the 35-yard line. When you need it, dial him from 43. Nick Moore snaps it. Jordan Stout holds it. Justin Tucker wins it for Baltimore.
All righty. Well, I think that concludes it all. Bengals go on and lose this game. Final score 19-17. Listen, it was a good game. It was a solid game. I don't think that, I Here's the way I put it. Whenever it's a divisional game, I think it was a good game leading into Sunday Night Football. I think it came down to obviously the amount of mistakes and missed opportunities. Both teams ran the field comfortably. It was getting themselves into the red zone that really possibly hurt one another because they couldn't complete drives. They couldn't finish off. They had to, stick themselves with most of the time field goals. And I don't think Baltimore was taking that risk tonight. I mean, I think that they would have gone the extra mile, but I don't think Baltimore is going to take the ultimate risk in losing the game. But what you come back around and you see how without Higgins, there's a couple major injuries throughout the game that I think you had to be concerned about. I mean, if you look at the total yardage, it was 291 to 325 total yards, 190 to 170 passing, 155 to 100 rushing. Bengals are leading on that one. You had about 5 yards per play on both teams. One interception was thrown, 3 sacks allowed for so the offensive line gotten better. But what really hurt me was just the simple notion of one, ball control, and 2 was finishing plays. Bengals couldn't finish much plays, and now you jump down to 2 and 3, where okay, the rest of the division is now 2 and 3, and we'll take a look at that here coming back from break. But this was a game that we knew that the Ravens had to, or that the Bengals had to step up. And yeah, they're in Baltimore. You'll get one more chance to come back home and face them at home, and hopefully you're praying that you can have a good session. You had a good game at home enough to beat them. But I think the bigger picture you have to look at this is that now, unless you have a better record than Baltimore, Baltimore has one up on you. Okay, they have one more up on you because not only they beat you in a divisional series, right, the divisional game, but they also don't have an extra loss. Bengals are they're going to head over to New Orleans and face the Saints this weekend, and the Bengals are going to have to face the Saints knowing that in the division, or continue their season knowing that they're going to be 0-2 on the year. That's what I'm taking away from this right now, is that what hurts the most as a fan on the outside looking in is that you have the Saints this weekend, and then you go face the Falcons before you're in Cleveland on Halloween, right? It's a Monday Night Football game. So by Halloween, which is in 3 weeks, we have to be, we can't afford to lose any more divisional games. And to go in, you can't go into week 10's bye at 0-3 or 1-2. I just think that's unacceptable, because the back half at it, you're going to have to go to Pittsburgh. You're going to have to come home to Cleveland. And the final game of the season, you're going to have to somehow find a victory. And that may be, and here's the way that it cuts down to it. All right. You got to still face the Chiefs. You got to still face the Buccaneers. You got to still face Bill Belichick in New England. All right. And then you got to go on and face the Bills, and you got to face the Ravens. It's not looking like a pretty schedule in the back end of the stretch. You're 2-3 right now. You're going to be facing teams like the Saints, like the Falcons, like the Panthers. And those are key games that are going to come up over the next 4 weeks. All right. You're going to have to win the next 4 games to put yourself in a solid position. 5-3, right? No, 6-3, sorry. And before you go into the bye, right? You have to be 6-3. You can't drop any more games, because then you're going to have to be lights out against Pittsburgh, against Tennessee, against Cleveland again, against Kansas City, Tampa Bay, New England, Buffalo, Baltimore. So A schedule that was looking like an easy walk in the park early on has turned out to be a struggle. And with the Ravens looking ahead, it's going to be much more of a struggle. All right, let's take a break. Let's come back and let's talk more about the AFC North and let you know how Pittsburgh has Pittsburgh and Cleveland's done. And then we'll transition into some other sports like baseball and back to professional wrestling. All right, you guys, we're just getting comfortable here on a Monday. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Thank you guys for listening to the Throw In with Justin here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, 10:46 here on the Throw In with Justin, right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I'd like to give a big shout out and thank you to StreamYard Studios. Create your podcast, YouTube videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out the free version today at StreamYard.com. StreamYard works wonders. You guys are looking to start your own podcast and whatnot, check them out. I encourage you. I really do. All right, a rough weekend in the NFL. I don't know. I wouldn't even say it was a rough weekend, but a couple of things that probably come out to surprise. I mean, it hurts. I think it hurts, especially when the Bengals drop a game to a division rival like the Baltimore Ravens. And when you know that you had the opportunity to head into, the end of this week and be in first place after a tremendous, terrible start to the season that no one's ever thought about having. And then you go on and win 2. And then this is the ultimate tiebreaker. So, I mean, I do want to just find out and see, is this something that, last week I felt like the Ravens took advantage of, hey, we're just the better team, and even if we lose, we're still going to be okay. And the Ravens showed last night that, hey, they could go out on a limb sometimes and go for it and risk the victories, risk these opportunities, and they're going to be okay. All right, nothing affects them. As if the Bengals, last night going for it on 4th down, making that decision, it may be, wonders. I don't know if the Bengals are there yet. All right, I am concerned that the Bengals are at the position where they can go on and take those risks. And I get it. Listen, this isn't the Super Bowl. We haven't made it to the Super Bowl this year. We haven't made it to 5. We barely made it to 500. Wins. Well, not 500 wins, 500, percentage. We haven't made it to 500 football yet. Let me put it that way, right? Let me rephrase my words. And so when we struggle just to get back to 500 and we finally have an opportunity to get a leg up in our own record, nonetheless, a leg up in the AFC, and you decide to make the decisions as if you're trying to go all out at home. It's not like you're starting the season off 4-0, and if you decided to take this risk and you lose against the Ravens last night, that this was going to be, all right, let's brush it off. Let's go back to what we were doing to begin with and, brush it off like it's nothing. Because it's only one loss. You still lead the division. No, this was, you're 2-2. The Ravens were 2-2. This is not a playoff game. This was a game simply just to get ahead of the entire division. You didn't need to go balls to the walls. You didn't need to go all out. The defense was phenomenal for you guys, stopping them down to field goals. I mean, they only scored 1 touchdown to the 2 touchdowns that the Bengals scored last night. Held them to the field goal range, gave the team the opportunity, and I think you wouldn't have been different. Wouldn't have been a 20 to a 20-19 game if they decided to kick the field goal in the third quarter, to tie the game, period. So I mean, that's the frustrating part out of this is that the mindset is probably somewhere else. And I'm not saying that they should never attempt to go for it on fourth down or in those situations. They're just not in the position right now where the offensive line and just the offense in general is banged up, and they're not at the greatest. Joe Burrow seems to still be lingering around trying to get back to himself. The offensive line that we spent the entire offseason in developing and working with and building, that's been shot down. Another injury to the offensive line. And you question those decisions, and a decision like that cost you a win could eventually cost you the playoffs. And now you look at a team, and you're giving the Baltimore Ravens the sense of, hey, we're in the we could beat the Bengals this week. We could go on and beat the Bengals at the end of the season. You're giving the notion, like, to the Steelers and to the Browns that, hey, come in and you could beat us as well. So you're really you're feeding it into the division, and a division where you really don't have much room to move. The only undefeated team there is right now after 5 weeks of football is the Philadelphia Eagles. And probably a team that probably shouldn't be, 5-0, or is the Philadelphia Eagles. A team that will be looking out for them is as they beat the Cardinals 20-17. The Cowboys beat the Los Angeles Rams 22-10. Thanks again to Cooper Rush. And now, now this NFC East that maybe looked like it was a division that was falling apart, with Dak Prescott being out. I mean, and thanks to the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, who somehow pulled off a victory in London against the Green Bay Packers. A lot of teams surprised, right? I mean, I was surprised to see the Giants pull off a victory against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Well, you know what? They did it. And yet you still kind of feel off balance, right? The only team I think you can feel some sort of confidence is the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's because they are, 20, they were 5-0 on the season. But then you got the Dallas Cowboys, who are kind of starting to impress some people. The Giants, I don't know. I'm kind of off, but 4-1, two teams 4-1, and the Eagles are 5-0. Washington Commanders fall to 1-4 against the Tennessee Titans as they lose 21-17. 49ers beat the Carolina Panthers 27-15, putting them out in front over the Rams, who are now second in place. Who'd have thought of that coming into Week 5? The Buccaneers picked up their victory 21-15. And what we'll talk about it this week, excuse me, is that the Browns lose to the Chargers 30-28, and the Chargers really needed this one. You fall after falling to the Jaguars, and after they needed to come back and have a nice game against Cleveland. A very back and forth, rocky game, but they need to battle it out because, listen, you come into Sunday Night Throwdown, you show the Monday Night Football, where the Raiders and the Chiefs will do battle that at Arrowhead, and it's in the AFC West is the chase to the Kansas City Chiefs, right? You are battling to go out there and face the Chiefs, right? See if you could get one ahead on Kansas City. And for Cleveland, for the Chargers, they need to be able to, stay one above. They can't afford mistakes and can't afford injuries. That's why it's also very important that the Broncos win and they move to 2-3 as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers lose just terrible. It was just a terrible loss, 38-3 against the Bills. Kenny Pickett. There's some controversy. We'll talk a little later on this week with the Bills hitting Kenny Pickett as he was sliding in the head, and it caused a big Steelers and Bills fight. And you're like, oh boy, I mean, I get it, right? You're standing up for your quarterback. You're standing up for, the guy who is supposed to lead you guys to the playoffs. The season isn't going your way. You guys are losing to the Bills, in a game that you guys don't want to be losing to. And the only game that you really have to show for this season is a game that you should have lost against the Bengals, right? And I went out there and I was a little sketchy about the Steelers. I mean, I told you from the beginning, the Steelers and the Browns are two teams that are going to probably be at the back end of this division. But early on, this division is looking one-sided, because if you go back, excuse me, morning mucus in my larynx here. But if you go back and you look at the how this division's turning over, you don't expect the Browns to be any good this year. You don't expect really much to be the Steelers to be any good, although maybe win 6-7 games on the season. You really expected it to be the Bengals and the Ravens, and that last night was a first image of, hey, it's going to be the Ravens, right? The Ravens right now hold immunity over the entire division. Right now, the Ravens are, they're comfortable. They are very much so comfortable, and they're going to cruise control to an AFC championship if the Bengals can't get their offense correctly, acclimated. So, I wouldn't, would you be surprised if Steelers got a little bit emotional defending their new quarterback, especially with all the NFL protocol concerns headed your way, right? They're still undecisive of how Tua's concussion, finally sparks new conversations. So it is very much so I just say it's very much so open. I mean, the Ravens are the only consistent team I see in the AFC North that are battling and winning and fighting for a championship spot. At the AFC North, we'll talk more about the fight between the Bills and the Steelers a little later on this week. We're at the end of hour number 1. When we come back, the MLB playoffs are in full swing as a wild card week concluded last night between the Padres and Mets. I'll get you highlights of that. Also, Extreme Rules. The Bloodline on SmackDown starting to fight with each other. Ironically, how we've been talking about this from day one, and the main event between Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. Still more to come. Hour number 2 coming up next. You guys are listening to the Throwing with Justin right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, hour number 2 here, 11:05 on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Hey, I want to give a big shout out to Spreaker. And if you missed any episodes or any segments of the throw-in here, weekdays, you guys can be sure to check us out and download us on the road. Take you guys wherever you go, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether you guys are driving. Download us and listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, so much more. Thank you to Spreaker being able to give us and be able to basically earn our way through podcasting throughout the day. So thank you so much to Spreaker for providing a website. If you guys are looking to provide a platform to upload your own podcast or whatnot, please check out Spreaker.com for more information. All right. I got a chance to listen to plenty of baseball over this weekend as wild card settings, implications kind of started setting in. And I want to tell you this here real quick. I don't think I really got a chance to really fairly state my excitement over the Padres making it to the playoffs, because the Padres are my team. I was born and raised in San Diego. I was a Padres fan by default. Before I became a football fan, before I became a wrestling fan, before I became a sports fan in general, the San Diego Padres was the team that was the first team that I was introduced to. It was the Padres. It was going to games on Sunday, getting a chance at the Qualcomm Stadium, getting a chance to go down onto the field, taking pictures with guys like Sean Burrow, way before the game. This was when they were letting people go into the stadium, 2.5 hours early on a Sunday, where you go take pictures with Sean Burrows, Brian Giles, Adrian Gonzalez, Cameron Maben, Chase Headley, Trevor Hoffman. Those players would be on the field. You get to stand on the warning track and just, take pictures with players that would come by and want to take pictures and sign autographs for you. Well, so Padres were my team. Grew up watching them, grew up listening to them on the radio, and, it's been nearly 15 years since I've really got a chance to see the Padres in the postseason. And, I'm not going to count 2020 as a year where the Padres really went to the postseason, because, they were expected to be a good baseball team to go to the postseason, but they did it on a shortened season, on a shortened, year, where they only played 62 games. Last year they fell apart, and it's kind of one of those things with the Padres. One, if you're young enough to only witness the failures that the Padres have had, all the losing seasons that the Padres have had in the past, it is kind of, I think, still so unsurreal that the Padres are finally making it to the playoffs. But I think for second is that, they went on and they played the New York Mets this weekend. They took it to all 3 games, and especially yesterday's game, which I'll play the highlights for here in a bit. But yesterday's game, I think it was still very nerve-wracking, because, you knew how well the Mets were. You knew how well the Mets, they won 100 games, and you got to go play the 100 games, right? You got to go on and win these ball games. How do I put it? In all honesty, without trying to sound like I'm crying, as a fan for the Padres, you kind of always seen the negatives, right? You've always seen the losing season. It's been nearly 15 years since they really officially went to the postseason. And when they did, they normally lose to maybe the Cardinals, as they used to always do. So, maybe, it was exciting that they didn't have to play the Cardinals. It was the Mets, but that's still no right. Hey, they're playing on the East Coast. They got to play against the New York Mets. They got to play against a team that wins 100 games. And so it was nerve-wracking to see the Padres in the postseason for the first time after 162 games. And I think also what's very nerve-wracking is what they have awaiting for them. So let's get down to the Mets and the Padres. Game 3 of the wild card, the only game in baseball that went on yesterday. Here we go.
Joe Musgrove is a big dude out there on the mound. 29 years old, 6'5", 230 pounds, 3 years with the Pirates. Signs a 5-year, $100 million deal. Is an all-star this year in front of not only his family, but all the people he grew up with back home in San Diego. Lindor lifts this one. This is shallow right field, and that's Jake Cronenworth, the second baseman. He's there. And just like Bassett, a 1-2-3 inning for Joe Musgrove. Underway at Citi Field on a Sunday night.
And so now Austin Nola gets a shot with the bases loaded.
Nola on the ground. Lindor can't get it. Bell's going to come in to score. Him follows him. What a job by Austin Nola as the Padres are on the board first. It's 2-0.
2-out walk here for the Padres as Trent Grisham comes to the plate.
Runner goes. Kim. Throw down. Not even close. Great jump by Hassan Kim as he steals his 13th base combined this year.
But Hassan Kim still second base with 2 outs. Big bag.
There's a great tag by Lindor also.
And he hits that one hard. Past Lindor and into center field. The stolen base pays off. Grisham delivers again. 3-0 San Diego. But into scoring position goes Profar.
Now Manny Machado has a chance to drive him in.
And Manny the other way into right field. That's going to bring in the run. Soto's bunt moves the runner to second. Profar is in. It's all Padres now as Machado delivers. Dominant performance by Big Joe Musgrove for San Diego. It is 4-0, bottom of the 5th. Alonso, McNeil, and Canna. Nobody has been able to figure him out. He has been dynamite. Alonso, though, will break up what would have been a no-hitter. That's the first hit for Pete Alonso and a shot into right field. McNeil strikes out, and that's the first in about the last 60 plate appearances that Jeff McNeil has struck out.
And now the pitch from Musgrove is hit in the air to right field, pretty well struck. Soto and Grisham both going back into the gap. Trent is on the run, and he makes the catch. Slammed into the fence as he made the play. Alonso's got to hustle back to first base, and Trent Grisham does it again. Now Joe's got his hat off. And boy, Buck Showalter waited to play this particular card for a desperate moment.
Joe's doesn't seem bothered at all. Check behind his ears. And I love Manny's just here shaking his head. Now he's clapping it up.
Pretty thorough search, and that appears to have yielded nothing. Escobar rolls one over. Myers goes to get it. He'll flip to Musgrove, and the out is recorded. Just a continuation of what he's been doing, and he gets Nito for the 5th strikeout of the night.
Joe Musgrove gesturing to the Mets dugout.
Nimmo hits it hard to right. Soto turns around, and he makes the play. Ball stays in the yard. Musgrove one more time looks over at the Met bench on his way back to his.
They're booing Musgrove. Might have just put his hand up to his ear as well. He is A-OK. Using Edwin Diaz. This is not the way Buck Showalter intended or hoped to have to use him here tonight. But this is the moment for the Mets if they want to try and stay in this game. Padres have a 4-0 lead in the 8th. Grisham at first, Kim at second, nobody out.
The butt put down. Diaz, he lets it go. Escobar fields, and the runners go to second and third.
Juan Soto coming up, 2 for 9 in his career against Diaz. Both hits have been home runs.
And he hits that fair down the third baseline. Hassan Kim is in. Grisham follows. And Juan Soto adds 2 more. And the Padres are up 6-0 with 2 outs in the 8th. But like many of the acquisitions, it didn't start very well for Josh Hader. But if he can join the rest of them, it may finish really well. They seem to believe they figured out that he's really a 1-inning guy, and that's when he's most effective.
Grounded slowly to third. Manny charges is. Now plays the hop. Throw to first is in time. And the Padres have not only captured the moment, they have captured the wild card series. And it's on to Los Angeles for Game 1 of the NLDS Tuesday night at Dodger Stadium. There will be playoff baseball at Petco Park in 2022.
Alrighty, so there you have it. There will be baseball at Petco Park, and yet again, it's still unsurreal moment. Maybe because I don't know. I'm not in San Diego because it's also the environment, right? The environment that you take in during these moments. Reason maybe why the Super Bowl felt more exciting was because the Bengals were a part of it, regardless of the win or loss that they had last year. And so for me, it was exciting. And I think that's maybe the notion that goes around, and now New York is going to feel salty and not salty, but now they get to turn their attention towards the Yankees as they get squared underway against the Guardians in that 5-game series. So, I don't know. Hopefully, maybe I get into it, but then a whole nother headache occurs, and they mentioned this throughout the broadcast last night as I was watching, and it was more so of, hey, listen, it's not about how who had the better record in the season. It's about who's on the hot streak now. And the Padres had those 3 key games against the Mets to get on to some sort of streak. And hopefully that just carries into LA and face the Dodgers, because the Dodgers have plummeted and has destroyed the Padres. And I think that's what, builds your nerves even more over the next week, because it's a 5-game series. And it's about, okay, how are these teams, how will the Padres handle the Dodgers now? You get 3 on the road, 2 at home. If you got to go to 5, 2, 2, and 1. And so how the National League is going to play it, I just want to, I saw this. So I was like, all right, let me give you what they were putting out there. Starting tomorrow, all 4 teams will play starting tomorrow. The Padres will be in LA. They'll be playing at 9:37 p.m. The Braves host the Phillies. The Mariners host the Astros, or over in Houston. And Cleveland is going over to New York. Now, Wednesday, the American League will be off, and they'll play Thursday, as the National League will play Wednesday and be off Thursday. And then on Friday, the National League, Saturday, all 4 teams, Sunday, all 4 teams. And if they got to go to Monday, it'll be the American League. And then basically kicking off from there is the NLCS, followed by the ALCS. So we're really winding down, and they're trying to speed this thing along, and they're doing it quite rapidly. There's no room for breaks to breathe, nothing. So, it's going to be the best of the East and the best of the West representing in the NLDS. You got the Central taking on the East, while the West, it will be the best from the West going to the ALCS coming up in just a week. And so that's how the playoff picture looks. The St. Louis Cardinals wrap up their, every team except for the Padres and the Mets had a 2-game shutout. All right. The Phillies came back in the 9th inning after the Cardinals were leading 2-0 in the 7th. They come back and they put up 6 runs to win 6-2 in a game. Go on to handle business Saturday, and the Phillies shut down the Cardinals. They shut down Albert Pujols. They shut down Adam Wainwright, and they shut down Yadier Molina for the last and final time. So we say so long to them. That is truly an ending of an era. Seattle took out Toronto, and Cleveland at home, the only home team, is going to be took care of business against Tampa Bay. Final in 15 innings as they finally scored a run. And you got to remember, in extra innings this year in the postseason, they don't have this ghost runner on at second. So, all right, let's take a break. We come back. There's some baseball news coming around the Reds as they're starting to make transitions in their coaching staff. We'll tell you all about that coming up next here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, let's come on back. Let's keep on going here as the vibes are doing good here on a Monday. I'm going to try to do a 9 to 11, did a 10 to noon today. kept on hitting that snooze button. I was like, you know what, man? I'm not going to do a show today, but I really have to because we can't miss the sports world on a Monday morning, especially after everything that has kind of unfolded after a big week. You know, there's a lot of things I wanted to cover, but we're not going to cover. We're going to cover more of it tomorrow, as we just simply, man, we don't have enough time, right? Extreme rules. There's a lot of I want to get to the extreme rules still. But listen, hey, you know, we are still a local Cincinnati sports station, you know, radio, network show, host, whatever. And, you know, Cincinnati Reds, we come right back down to it, right? I mean, it's been a week. Season's ended. Playoffs is now here. And the Reds are not waiting to start making changes and stuff to their lineup and to their roster. And coming out over here from Mark Sheldon back on earlier this week is that the Reds decided to part way with 5 members of their coaching staff. And, they're going to bring back David Bell for another season. And here, I think here's where I stand here on this entire notion is that David Bell, listen, okay, we're going to come back and we're going to come out here and we're going to change your coaching staff. And we're going to hopefully develop better coaching staff for you. And I think a part of it's going to be, all right, well, it's going to be up to you to execute with what we have. And if you don't, how many years do you put on David Bell? And I guess my biggest, thing is, it's going to be probably more so. Okay, well, how much of it was David Bell's managing skills that really put the Reds behind? Because it wasn't. All right, let's take a look at this way. Because it wasn't the players that were being put on the field. The manager, David Bell, has the ability to manage the 26-man roster, 26, 27-man roster, whatever, that he is being given. He has to manage them in a baseball game. So if you're giving him players that just simply can't play, right? I mean, he's putting Hunter Strickland out there. You picked him up under free agency. That didn't work. You go put out Joey Votto, and he's underperforming. You go put out Mike Moustakas and Jonathan India, and they're underperforming. And these are your key guys in your lineup, in your roster, and they're underperforming. So what else more can you do? I mean, you don't have a choice but to put Luis Cessa in the ball game when you don't have a Luis Castillo, right? Or you don't have a choice but to put, but to have a less out, not a substantial outfield because you don't have a Nick Castellanos or a Jesse Winker. So overall, how much of it do you really want to sit here and blame the coaching staff for not having the team that they need to be put together with? Now, I think, around this time, this is the time in the off season, because for 22 other teams, this is an off season moment. And I think that you have to now start breaking down and seeing, where do you need help on? And with everything, and right now is the time to take care of your managers, right? Your coaches. So David Bell is going to return this season, and he's not going to be joined by 5 coaching staffs from last year. Delino DeShields as the first base coach, running coach, hitting coach Alan Zinter, bullpen coach Lee Tunnell, advanced scouting coach Christian Perez, and assistant coach Rolando Velez. They will not be returning this season. And I think the manager for the Reds, this is what he had to say about that. We felt, this is coming from Nick Kroll, we felt that these are the right changes for new voices in different places. We struggled in certain areas this year. We still need to make improvements, and we thought that those were the right changes to make. Well, I'll tell you this. Yeah, I don't know if these are the right choices or not. This is obviously under restriction for the Reds organization, but this is a start. Now, who do you go in and fill in those spots is going to reflect on if you made the right choices or not. So it's one thing to get rid of coaches that obviously did not, that off of a team that did not play well. And I think of that way because it's not like these guys are not coaching them properly. And it's not like these guys are not doing their job. They're doing their job significantly. All right. Give them a lot of credit, especially with the rough season. And I think one of the problem is that, when you have like 56 players running up and down in your roster, it's a little bit complicated, a little bit difficult. But these are coaches that have been in with Bell staff since 2019. And they're starting to be replaced. Coming from Kroll also, I think we're going to do what we can over the next couple of weeks to figure out the best people we can bring in and to supplement the staff that we already have and put people in places. I don't want to put the number on it, whether we add or subtract. So that's coming from Nick Kroll. And I will basically, we want to be watching this, right? Obviously, I don't know. So what do? Do you bring up coaches from the minor league system up to the majors and give them the shot? I think if you're looking to be a penny pincher, that you do that, right? Save some money by bringing coaching from the minors and giving them a promotion. Or do you go out there on the market and see who is available? And I guess here's the other thing too, is that, you got David Bell, is that this is something that the Padres have dealt with all, for especially at the manager level, is that they would bring in guys that no one knew about. They'd bring in guys like Andy Green, who was before Jace Tingler. And it's nothing like nothing disrespectful to these coaches, right? These are great. These are good coaches. They're going to go on, and I think they're going to go obviously jump from team to team until they find a team that they can have success at. But these are coaches that you really, when you pick up players, when you pick up coaches, when you pick up managers, when you pick up players, you want to be able to say, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy." It's like when I picked up Hunter, when the Reds picked up Hunter Strickland. Yeah, I remember him playing in San Francisco. You go pick up a guy that you don't even know, and it's like who they have, who is he? And it was the same thing when with the Padres with Jace Tingler with Andy Green. It was like, all right, some guy that you had to look on the on the black web because you couldn't, you didn't know who they played for, what they did, or if they were even coaches to begin with. I mean, if that's the case, listen, I take a $50,000 check, pay my travel expenses and my uniforms and everything, and I'll go take a $60,000-$70,000 check a year to go coach for the Cincinnati Reds. That's what I do. So I don't know. We'll keep our eye out there as we get deeper into the off season for the Reds. So, but Right-handed pitcher also Robert Duggar refused to outright assignment, and he elected free agent this year. I think that's another thing that we're going to see this season for the Reds as we get into the off season. We are going to see the players that want to stay in the Reds organization and the players that don't want to stay in the Reds organization, and the players that have the opportunity to get out of the Reds organization, then they're going to go do that, to be honest. And I say that with the all kindness, but at the same time, there are players out there that want to succeed. There are, and I'm sure that Mike Moustakas, Joey Votto, and Jonathan India, among others, that want to succeed next season. And sometimes you're going to have to opt out and take your chances at going with another team to give yourself a winning ball club. Now, hey, on my list, I'm not putting Pittsburgh on there. I'm not putting Miami on there because, they're sellouts. But, I'm not even putting Baltimore on my list still yet. But, it's going to be a tough few months as we deep dive into the offseason for the Cincinnati Reds. All right, let's step away. Let's come back and let's talk you back more about Extreme Rules. Let's get you ready for Monday Night Raw as more still accomplished. Hey, what do you guys think of the fight pit match between Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins here? We'll talk about that and more as we wrap up a Monday show here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. .44 here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. We will be back again tomorrow from 9 to 11 talking about the highlights of Monday Night Raw, getting ready for the playoffs as the ALDS begins tomorrow, as well as let's not forget about the whole NFL week 5 concludes with the Raiders and the Chiefs tonight at Arrowhead Stadium. And I'll say this, Arrowhead game, man, can't vote against Patrick Mahomes. Want to give a big shout out to Epic Dimmicks Down, the proud music displayed, royalty-free music being hosted here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Discover your world's artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts music they deserve. Epic Dimmick Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epicdimmicksound.com. Alrighty. Man, we're just wrapping up a week, and we're excited. I'm excited. Hey, listen, we should be excited because WWE Extreme Rules really kicked it off. All right. I mean, I'm not joking with you. It was for one, really a year ago, this time a year ago, I would say that the WWE had some issues. They'd had problems, right? WWE had problems of what product they're trying to put out there. And as we come into Extreme Rules, like I said, 6 premium live events before WrestleMania. That's 6 months. And we're trying to start getting ourselves wrapped around storylines, and storylines unfold. And I told you big about Ronda Rousey. I really thought that maybe Charlotte Flair could have returned to close things out and cost Ronda the match. And I would have said, okay, Ronda, Charlotte, no titles needed, because realistically, no title is needed between these two females. They could have had a one-on-one match at Crown Jewel. That would have been exciting for me. I would have wanted to go in and watch that. But we didn't see that. And I would have also sat there and said, hey, Dakota Kai would have won the Raw Women's Championship back on Saturday night, beating Bianca Belair. Now, let me ask you this, because I am worried about this. And maybe we can answer this over the next few weeks. Other than Bayley, what other attractive opponents that you really think could come in here and win the game, beat Bianca has she really faced? What type of stepping stone or image has Bianca Belair put this Raw Women's Championship on? Okay, this was a big notion for the past year since SummerSlam of last year that she was going after a championship. And she got distracted and she ended up losing it to Becky Lynch. She finally gets it back on her at WrestleMania against Becky Lynch, and she's faced Becky Lynch, one other time? And then she's gone on for this run, and now it's Bayley. And I believe Becky Lynch and Bayley were the two most really big names in the women's division that's really emphasized and put emphasis on this championship run that Bianca's on. And the same thing could be said to Liv Morgan. It starts and it ends with Ronda Rousey. But in between there, what type of matches did both of these champions have to really elevate and to spark up a title run career? I'm going to tell you right now, I can almost promise you that these two title runs that both Liv Morgan and Bianca Belair have had, especially Bianca Belair, as it continues, it's going to be erased. And I'm not going to say erased. I don't want to say it's. I don't really want to say erased, but it's going to be just not. I don't know. I wouldn't remember Liv Morgan title run. So I guess that's my concern is what has the WWE universe gained from these two women in their title run picture. Now Bianca Belair is still growing, and this is obviously not the end of Bayley's run. But I mean, it's something to think about. Now, the other thing to think about too, and we'll talk more about this, is Ronda Rousey winning the SmackDown Women's Champion again. Who is going to step up to her? Is it going to be Ronda and Liv Morgan at Crown Jewel? Because you got to admit that these last few matches that Liv Morgan has had with Ronda Rousey has really helped Liv Morgan out. Now, there's that Demolic. She was curled up in the dark corner, as WWE exclusive, if you didn't see. So, we're going to get a chance to see and kind of picture, okay, exactly what's going on with Liv Morgan. How is she going to have a character change? And I think it would be nice for a character change. I think it'd be nice for her to turn heel a little bit. But yeah, that's the women's side inside of things. Another match I was very impressed about, and I thought Imperium was going to come in and dominate, but yet we saw the Brawling Brutes. Now I'm a little discouraged about that. I would have been okay with the Brawling Brutes losing this match on Saturday against Imperium. Okay, I would be okay with that. I don't see Imperium. I think Imperium needs. All right, I think Imperium needs this victory. I had a little. I readjusted my headphones and I hit the mute button by mistake. But I think Imperium needed this victory. And one thing that we'll talk a little bit later on this week is the combination of how many team fractions are on SmackDown alone. You got Phantasma, you have Imperium, you have the Brawling Brutes, you have the Bloodline. That's 4. And it is kind of funny that you go on and say that just on SmackDown alone, that Phantasma comes out and say, hey, we're going to run the show from now on. I think that's a little funny. I think that's a little hilarious if we could press the laughter button there. But overall, I mean, I think I felt that the Imperium would have significantly done better by winning this 6-man match that they had here. Karrion Kross beating Drew McIntyre. I can see Karrion Kross having feuds with Sheamus, Gunther, some really physical matches. And I told you guys back on Friday that this was going to be a match that both men, that Karrion Kross, that, both men were going to just go to war with each other. I honestly thought this was a better match than Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins. But the reason I thought this was a better match is because you also knew that Scarlett was going to interfere. And boy, did she interfere, costing Drew McIntyre the match. Obviously, I mean, you can see this match carrying it out through, and I guess I'm going to speak over myself because you just start clicking pieces together. How can you not put Karrion Kross and Drew McIntyre into War Games? War Games coming up in 2 months. How can you not? I mean, I know Crown Jewel is coming up in a few weeks. You got to have matches for those. But how can you not talk about Drew McIntyre, Karrion Kross getting inside War Games? We also got Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins beating up on each other in the fight pit. Not as much as I remember it as it used to be. Maybe because it wasn't a darker setting. But you know what? And the way that it was very physical. Okay. I think that they made it a little bit more physical than what it should have been. Not should have been, but it didn't. It still, to me, it looked like a typical wrestling match. And when you see it, not a fight, just a wrestling match. And when guys bounce off the cages and they could come back in 2 seconds, that's one thing. But when you bounce off of cages and it hits you like it's like a fake train hitting you, I think that's another thing. The way it ended with Seth Rollins tapping, I think that's a little, I was anticlimactic. I don't know why they had Seth Rollins tapping. I honestly, listen, if you ask me to rewrite the ending, okay, and I guess this is the only concern I have going back to Bray Wyatt returning back, right? The White Rabbit returning back to WWE. The only thing that I would have done differently was put Bray Wyatt in a return against somebody that appeared in the match, in one of the matches. Whether that would have been the I Quit match, where maybe Bray Wyatt, and I know he doesn't need to be with the Judgment Day, but with Bray Wyatt maybe costing Edge the match, or starting a feud with Seth Rollins, or somebody just in general, or Matt Riddle. But what I would have enjoyed seeing is that, because they quickly, as soon as the match was done, they quickly exit the ring for Bray Wyatt to do what he wanted to do. And don't get me wrong, that was incredible. We'll have all week to talk about that. But what we're looking for is that both men could have been counted out. I would like to see that. I would like to see this feud continue a little bit more for Bray Wyatt to be in the ring or something. Were you satisfied enough that Bray Wyatt came back the way he did? Don't get me wrong, the cinematic views, the fact that he had the entire Firefly, the Funhouse characters, how all of them were scattered throughout the arena, and they highlighted both of them, all characters, and then they even highlighted Bray Wyatt as the Fiend at ringside, and then they go to the stage where he comes through the door, and they're doing this back and forth stuff. Overall, this was very, very, very exciting. It got me goosebumps. And the last time that I had goosebumps on me in professional wrestling was honestly when I saw The Undertaker, and he came back from being in the vegetable state to face Kane, during that SummerSlam where Kane and was it SummerSlam? It was a Night of Champions. It was Kane versus Ray, and The Undertaker finally came back. It was probably about a decade ago, a little over than that. So we're sitting here, And at the end of the conclusion of Extreme Rules, heading into Monday Night Raw, and we have Bianca Belair still as your Raw Women's Champion. Does this feud between Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins continues? I'm certain that Seth Rollins doesn't want it to end as a tap out. Judgment Day got personal, really personal with Edge by using his wife, and after giving Edge the option to quit or to hit Beth Phoenix with the chair, and they still hit Beth Phoenix with the chair regardless, I think that just elevates it. We're going to hopefully hear from Judgment Day tonight. I don't know how far that's going to WWE or into tonight's show. But man, I think at the end of the day, you have to feel good about the product that they put out there. And I think for the first time, I see what I like the most about this is that you get to see the product that's being put out there, and there are questions that have to be answered, right? You go into Monday Night Raw, and you're kind of like, what is going on? Is the feud over with? Okay, how is Edge going to respond? Is Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins done? What's next for Damage Control? And these are good questions to ask because the curiosity killed the cat, but it keeps WWE relevant as they make a big statement to AEW. AEW has their own conversations. We'll talk about that. Hey, 2 hours have come and gone. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button where you guys are watching us on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. All right, come back tomorrow. We'll kind of bring down some more college football for you guys. Wrap up NFL week. Get you guys ready for some baseball. And let's talk about what happened on Monday Night Raw. Hey, we're just getting started on a Monday. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until tomorrow, you guys all have yourself a fantastic day.